Okay, we are recording. Good morning, everybody. Mark Pinto here with you from Phoenixville Public Library, and welcome to this presentation on downsizing from Caring Transitions of Chester County. Glad to have with us this morning John Hall. John, please tell us about your company, and then we'll get into the presentation. And this is interactive, folks, so feel free to ask questions, unmute yourselves along the way at any point.
Well, thank you, Mark. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining. This is a pleasure to be able to talk with you all about the services we provide. And when folks ask me, when we're out having drinks or something, they say, what kind of business are you in? And I say, I'm in the stress reduction business. And I say that because truly that's what we do. There are a lot of features of the business that we're in, but for all intents and purposes, we help families who are going through difficult decisions get from where they are to where they think they need to be. So we facilitate all aspects of a transition, from decluttering to packing to floor planning to getting movers, unpacking, staging, hanging pictures for you, liquidating assets, doing sales, coordinating donations, and doing cleanouts. So we do a whole host of things that kind of fill in the gaps of things that are making people feel overwhelmed. So I guess that's my first question to you all is, well, before I even get to overwhelmed, how many people are planning to downsize? Or are you guys on this call because you're thinking about downsizing in the next couple years?
Yep, you can do a raise your hand or unmute yourself. Raise your hand is under reactions in your Zoom.
Yes, thinking about downsizing in the next 5 years.
Okay, so how many of you feel, or do you feel prepared? Do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel like you're not ready? Is that kind of the feeling that many of you have?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's
I feel like we haven't started yet, so I'm trying to find out what it involves.
okay.
Always
So
good to be prepared.
good. So you're not alone. I would say 90% of the people who are going through the decisions to downsize are feeling a bit of anxiety. They're uncertain. They haven't done this for a long time. They're not quite as capable as they were 30 years ago when they moved with a family. So it's a lot that's going on with them. So what's the first thing you really need to do to make this stuff work? You know, how do I get started is really the theme of this. And so what I say to folks is, number one is getting in the right mindset. You know, you have to be positive. And the first thing that I try to do with families is to say, let's not call this downsizing. Let's call it right sizing, because down anything has a negative connotation, and you're really not in a negative sense doing something. You're right sizing. Your life has changed. You know, I, for one, I've been living in Chester County for 40 years. I've raised a family here. My children are out of the house, but I still have the house I raised them in 30 years ago. Well, as my wife and I say, we live in 3 rooms, the kitchen, the family room, and the bedroom. And we have all this space and all these things to maintain. And it's probably not the right environment for us. So as you age, you progress through different things, from an apartment, from a dormitory to an apartment, to a ranch house, to a colonial house, and then eventually to, something smaller. So that's a very positive thing. Many of you probably have anxiety over leaving, your comfort zone. You've been there, you've got a lot of memories. Well, the memories are positive. They're not necessarily negative things, and they're not the house. It's the things that you take in your mind that are really positive. The simple fact that you may be able to downsize is a blessing. There are a lot of people who don't have options. So having the option to maybe move and go and start a different life is a good thing. So there are lots of positive aspects of downsizing. You may make new friends, you'll have more convenience in your life, you'll have more free time. and you have an opportunity to kind of take the things you've acquired through your life and maybe give them forward. So getting the right mindset is absolutely the number one thing you need to do, because if you are reluctant and apprehensive, you're just putting yourself through unnecessary anxiety. So that's the first thing. So what's holding you back? You know, that's the question I ask folks all the time. So you're thinking about downsizing. Why haven't you done it yet? What are your concerns? What are your fears? You know, do any of you folks have a comment on that? You want to share any of your thoughts?
Unfortunately, COVID has made everything so much more complicated. I mean, we're even isolating from our children, so we cannot give our possessions to our children, and they don't want them. So,
Well, so the good thing is, things are improving a great deal. I got my second COVID shot this week. Most of the senior communities where people are moving have been vaccinated. The employees there have been vaccinated, and more people are getting the vaccine. So I'm seeing some restrictions being lifted. I'm seeing, you know, light at the end of the tunnel, which is a good thing. It's not ideal right now. And certainly people have been apprehensive to move when they can't have a support system because no one should be interacting with each other. But that's, you know, that I think is going to be changing very, very quickly over the next several months as the vaccines get more widely distributed, particularly to seniors. So, you know, that's a valid concern. But what other things are holding you back? You know, are there things like money or time or just fear?
I'm not sure where we want to go.
yes,
So,
yes.
Yeah, well,
Where do we go?
I relate to that. You know, we're thinking, you know, where do we want to go from here? And we're comfortable with our options now, right? It's home. The challenge is that the home we need next is going to be different than the home we're in now, right? So we want one floor living. We want that first floor master bedroom. We want maintenance-free living. We want some space for our kids to come visit.
Make sure I see who's here and who's
That
not.
starts narrowing the list down. We need to be closer to, we want to be close to them. So, you know, but those are things that aren't going to change. You really need
My point is that.
to start thinking about those things and building a list of what it is you want to do. What are your objectives? Do you want to have simplified living? Do you need a safer environment? Do you need someone to be preparing meals? Do you need to be closer to children? Do you want to be somewhere warm? These are all important considerations to be taking into account now. So the biggest question that people ask me all the time is, what do I do with all my stuff? Right? I'm living in this home. I've been here for 30 years, 40 years. It's full of memories. It's full of things. I've got a lot more stuff than I'm going to need going forward. And what do I do with it? Is that going through any of your minds?
definitely.
Okay.
I'm
So,
already in an active adult community. So we've already done got rid of the colonial house and moved to the active adult with all some of the things you're talking about, bedroom on the first floor, no shoveling, things like that to do, but it is a house.
well, yep. And it's got its share of housing challenges, right?
Right.
Wow.
So when you have all of this stuff, you've got probably 5 choices to make. And you need to start thinking about what those choices are sooner rather than later. It's what stuff are you going to take with you, right? And that's pretty straightforward in a lot of cases. You want to take, you know, a lot of times you want to take your bedroom. You may take a couple pieces from your family room. And then after that, you may not really know. So you want to figure out what you're going to relocate. You also want to figure out what stuff is going to go to family members or friends. And we all know that today the kids don't want nearly as much as we had hoped they would want. The things that we had coveted, you know, they say we got our own stuff. We don't want that stuff. But absolutely, that should be one of your first tests in trying to figure out what you're going to take or not take, is to give it to the kids or give it to friends. The next is you want to decide what stuff you may want to sell. You know, you don't have room for it. You don't use it anymore. Guys in particular have power tools and, you know, lots of guy toys that they're not really going to use much anymore. Women have a lot of kitchen utensils and appliances that they may not use anymore. And then there's furnishings for rooms that you're not going to have going forward. So those are all things you may want to think about, you know, not taking and selling. Then you move down the list and there are other items that you may want to be looking at for donations. So there are things that don't hold a lot of value, but take up a lot of room. We've all acquired a lot of glassware over the years, collectibles that we're no longer interested in. There are tools that, you know, don't really work, motors and parts and lumber and all kinds of things that we don't use anymore. Some of that can go to charity. The other, it's got to be identified for disposal. A lot of homes have a whole basement full of old paint that was, you know, a room 15, 20 years ago, but you just haven't gotten rid of it. Tires, etc. So these are all things that you really need to think about what you're going to do with it. And you can do that now while you've got time, because things aren't going to change. So the whole notion of managing stress is not feeling out of control and feeling as though you've got a time constraint. So being able to do these things incrementally makes it a whole lot more manageable, makes you feel a whole lot more in control, and really makes the experience a whole lot more productive and positive. So folks always ask me, well, that all sounds good. You know, we can identify this stuff and try to distribute it places, but I really don't know what it's worth. I don't know what my things are worth. So I don't know if I want to give it away or sell it, or if my kids should take it, or if I should take it with me. Do any of you have that kind of concern right now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So,
And working with an appraiser, having an appraiser come into the home is, and finding the right appraiser is often difficult.
well, and so there are a couple things too, a couple caveats to that. So depending upon what you have, one, an appraisal versus market value are two different things. So appraisers oftentimes will give you numbers that are associated with what it would cost to insure it. So you're going to get an elevated sense of worth with an appraisal most often, not always. Appraisals are not inexpensive. And unless you have things that you believe are of good value, you have vintage sterling silver, you have original artwork, you have custom jewelry, not costume jewelry, but custom jewelry, those sorts of things, and or some true antique items. Beyond that, an appraisal, I don't know, is going to be worth the money for you. But if you have those things, certainly, you know, if you have a $100,000 painting, you want an appraisal. If you have diamonds and rubies, you want appraisals. You know, if you have Chippendale furniture from the 1700s, you want that appraised. But if you've got Thomasville furniture from 30 years ago, and you've got, you know, jewelry that was bought at Macy's, you know, you don't necessarily have to have that appraised. If you've got sterling that was, for the most part, your wedding gift, it's pretty easy to get a value on that. So keep that in mind as you look at how you manage expenses and manage time. But in general, things that are worth money, things like guns hold their value. Certain power tools hold their value. Coins, that are silver or gold hold their value. Sterling is worth money, but it's not worth as much as you'd like because 95% of it is taken and just melted, unless it's Tiffany or Cartier or some special pattern. If you have vintage Pyrex in colors like yellows and blues and red, those are worth money. If you have mid-century modern furniture, that's worth money. The market is excited about it. If you have typical brown furniture, and it can be nice, it can be Pennsylvania House, it can be Henkel Harris, it can be Henredon. It doesn't hold its value all that well. If you have collectibles like Hummels and Yadros and things like that, the market isn't real strong for that. There's some value, some are worth good money, but most in general are commodities these days. Glassware, as I said, and crystal, not in vogue right now. Clothes, there's not a strong market for clothes. The best value in clothes are vintage clothes from the 70s and 60s, and then some that are period clothes that might be flapper era, etc. And artwork in general is not terribly valuable unless it's got some provenance, it's a known artist, and there's a market for it. So as you think about your home, don't get consumed by what you think the value is of the items that you have. The most valuable asset in a home is the home. And many folks get distracted by trying to deal with all of the things in the home at the expense of marketing the home. So when you think about having a home that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars that costs you maybe $1,000 a month or a little less or a little more to carry each month in taxes and maintenance and insurance, think about that as you're thinking about how quickly you get your home ready for sale. So many folks get to the point where they spend months and months thinking about small minutia, being in the weeds because they think it might be worth something. And meanwhile, the clock is ticking and they're spending thousands of dollars unnecessarily. So that's a really important consideration, that there's an ROI and an opportunity cost associated with time when it comes to relocating. And it's a big number in many cases. The good thing is that all of us are sitting at a great time to want to sell our house or relocate. The market could not be any stronger. Interest rates are low. The supply of homes is very low. So many of my clients are just finding a lot of pressure once they put their house up for sale because it sells in a week. Some sell within a day. And the folks who are buying the homes are settling very quickly. So you want to be as prepared as you can be for those really appealing buyers who will say, I'll give you all cash. I want a settlement in 30 days and I will waive inspections, because those are happening. And you don't want to say, oh, I'm 4 months away because I'm just not ready. So you really want to do what you can now while you can to get ready. So folks ask me as well, who can help me do all this stuff? It sounds great, but there's a lot of work to be done. And so, not everyone has an open checkbook and can write a check and say, okay, bring the people in to do this. But most of us have friends, we have family, and they're charities, and then they're professionals. Work a lot with families to get ahead of the donation piece, that organizations like Green Drop will come to your home and pick up bags and boxed items and take them away for you. You don't even have to take them to the site. That's a really positive thing. Family members, you invite them in early to say, gee whiz, these are things that we're not going to take. Do you want this stuff? You want these dishes? Do you want these pots and pans? Do you want electronics, etc.? And they get out of the house. An example, my son hasn't lived in our home in 10 years, 12 years. And we had his mountain bike. He bought a condominium And I said, I think it's time that if you want the bike, you take the bike. If you don't want the bike, we'll donate the bike or sell the bike. What do you want to do? Miraculously, the bike got in the car and got driven to his condo. And we had it for 10 or 12 years. And there are countless things in our house that are like that, that we walk by every day, and we just had to take charge. My daughter's closet is now cleaned out. She was living in Philadelphia. It's like, okay, you come home, you got to clear out parts of your closet. Not because we don't want her stuff there, but it's just there taking up space, and it's just a burden to us. So you can do things like that. The next question that people often ask is, how long does this take? And that depends. It really depends on what kind of control you all want to have. So it can be methodical and 6 or 12 months, or it can be intense and happen in 30 days. And it's just a question of your style, your needs, and your resources. The methodical way is typically the least expensive because you have time to get free resources, typically. You also have time to make better decisions. If you're selling items, it gives you more time to get value for your items, because keep in mind, time is an enemy of value. So when you have to sell something quickly, you don't get as much money as if you have time to look around and find the market for it. So what do you do? When do you do it? It's a matter of setting priorities. So for each of you, if you're thinking about downsizing, it really has to be, you have to put a stake in the ground, right? When do you want to move? And everything starts from there. So if you're thinking about downsizing and it's 2 years from now, then you should have a timeline that says, during the next 2 years, here are the things that we're going to do, right? And there are lots of things, there are lots of pieces to it. If you say, holy cow, we need to be out of here by the summer, for whatever reason, you've got 3 months. What do you have to do in 3 months to be out of your home? And that's a very different plan than if you're going to be out in 2 years. But you've got to put that stake in the ground. Then the next is, you want to identify the easy decisions you have to make, because all of us get mired in, there are too many decisions to make, it's too overwhelming. But every day you walk by things, and if you were focused, you'd say, I'm never going to take that chair. That old beat up chair, we just have it because it's comfortable and it's been here from before. So let's take action on that now. The ladders that you may have in a garage. Do we need the extension ladders? Am I going to climb up to the second floor roof now? Probably not. Lots of tools in the house that you don't, jacks and things like that, that when you were changing your own oil and doing other things you used. So the kitchen, you're not baking 4 dozen cupcakes anymore, or you're not going to be hosting dinners with 60 people. Just if your lifestyle is changing, those are the decisions you can be making. And just think about the junk that you have, the things that go to the attic or the garage or the basement that were just conveniently out of sight. Just come up with a plan and a timeline. Figure out if you can do it, your family can do it, or you need a professional to do it. Right. So that's a really important piece, though, is just having this timeline, getting committed to a plan. Don't complicate it. There are 1,000 reasons why you can't start. You only need one reason to start. Lastly, folks say, well, this all sounds great, but I'm healthy. I love my house. I'm not like all those other people. I still like puttering around. I love having the space. I want my kids, my grandkids to be here. Why don't I just stay here? And that may well be the right decision for you. But if you are thinking about downsizing, there is a reason. And I will tell you that the single most disappointing or frustrating element of my business is that people wait too long. Because once they wait too long and there's an event that compels them to move, and it's unforeseen, there's a fall, there's an illness, there's a stroke, a heart attack, God forbid, a passing, and all of a sudden you can't live where you're living. Now you're out of control. Now you are mandated to have to go somewhere, and it's not under your terms. So while you are fully capable and you're aware and in charge, that's the time to be setting your plan and figuring out what you want to do. It's also a good time that if you're moving to a senior community, for example, you want to go when you have some vitality, because you're going to make new friends. You want to be able to engage. You want to be able to take advantage of the amenities that you're paying a lot of money for, right? If you go to a senior community and they charge you thousands of dollars a month, it's not for the space you're taking up, it's for the meals and the activities and the oversight. So always keep that in mind. Start with the end in mind, something that I was told a long time ago when I started in business. Start with the end in mind. So if the end is, I want to be comfortable, I want to be safe, I don't want to be a burden to my children, then you need to have a plan. We started our business here, my wife and I, and a big part of it was we relocated my mother-in-law, who lived in a home for 54 years. And one of the things she had always said as she was aging was, I don't want to be a burden. And she was dealing with taking care of her mother and father, who wound up going to a nursing home. And she would always talk about, God, it's so tough. I don't want to be a burden like that. And what we said to her was, you need to move then. You're 90 miles away from us. You've got health issues. You've got a single family home. And it's just a challenge for us to be able to take you to doctors, help you with things that break in the house, and even see you. You want to see us more often. Let's get closer. So we helped her clear out our house, packed her up, moved her, relocated her down to Exton and Eagle View. She got an apartment, and she couldn't believe how much better her lifestyle was, because she was around her family. She had no headaches. She was in a safe environment, and her friends loved the whole idea of coming to visit her. It was like a trip for them. So keep in mind that the end may be a whole lot more positive than you think now. Now you see all the obstacles. Think about the outcomes. And that's why I say you want to think about where you're going to be now while you're clear-minded, capable, and available. So at this point, well, normally we'd have a lot of interaction where we could see people and see hands raised, et cetera. So that's the value, is asking questions, figuring out, what your options are. So I'm going to open it up to any questions you may have about this process.
Feel free to unmute or type your question in the chat if you're unable to unmute.
I want to ask what to do with certain things. I have a lot of wood, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to recycle it. I don't want to just throw it away. What do I do with, they're big pieces of wood from used to be a set of bunk beds. They're nicely stained and so forth, but what do you do with something like that? Or I'm in Montgomery County, televisions and old box springs and mattresses. I don't know what to do.
Okay. So a couple things. So wood, like headboards and footboards for beds, those can be donated. And those are things that charities like. Old televisions, if they are.
Excuse me, what charity would you think of? I mean.
Well, there's one in Montgomery County. I think it's St. Thomas Church. I'd have to look it up, but they will come and pick up some charitable items, and they take them and repurpose them. They're like, I'm trying to think of what the town is. I just sent them a referral and they picked up some items. I don't have it off the top of my head, but there's a church group in Montgomery County that will come and take furniture.
There's
But
also Habitat for Humanity in Norristown and Coatesville.
So Habitat for Humanity, so a couple things. They have something called Restore, RESTORE. So basically they'll take things and they'll resell them. They may take them, but there are a couple of things. One, they oftentimes don't come into the house and go up to the second floor, down to the basement and do stairs. That's one. Two, they oftentimes require photographs of the items being donated because they only have a limited amount of space, and Restore is actually a resale operation where the proceeds go to fund their Habitat for Humanity efforts. And there are a lot of things they don't take. They don't take a lot of sofas that are old upholstered sofas. They will not take entertainment centers. Oftentimes they don't take china cabinets. Why? Because they're big items. The people who need them, who need furnishings, oftentimes don't have space. And there are lots of other options for entertainment centers and break fronts. So you just have to be careful. They're a good organization. They may take the wood. If you had loose wood, construction lumber, a place like Habitat may take that and put that into their building supplies. So, you'd have to see what it was to figure out where it would go or if it's worth it. So lots of times you want to donate things. We all want to donate things. Sometimes it costs more to be a good citizen than you think. It's hard to give things away in some cases.
yeah,
Let me
Some
talk to you about
comments.
the electronics. So if you have televisions, if they're the old tube televisions, they're kind of a boat anchor. So they need to be taken to a specific recycling facility. We typically take them way out near Chester County to recycle those types of televisions. If they are flat screen televisions and they work, they can be donated to an organization like Green Drop. If you have electronics like printers and computer equipment and stereo equipment, that stuff can be recycled at Staples.
Comment in the chat, Liberty Thrift will come and take stuff.
Yep.
A couple questions in the chat too. Is there a certain age that people should start thinking about this?
Well, so I don't think there's a magic age because I've got 2 employees that are 70 years old that outwork the 25-year-olds. And then there are folks that are, in their 50s that have early dementia, right? So it really depends on your medical conditions. There are lots of folks that are compromised with their knees or their hips. They can't do steps very well. There are a whole host of issues. And sometimes one spouse is really vibrant and the other not so much so. So you really just have to look at your lifestyle and say, how do I improve it?
And there's another related question in chat. What's the average age of people that use your services? Just curious. I helped my mom move to a continuing care community. Took me 4 years to convince her. She moved at age 86. She's happy she did.
Well, I'm not sure the question was an average age. So
Yes.
we have a lot of octogenarians for sure. We're starting to see more people that are successfully retiring in their late 60s and early 70s who say, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to carry things up and down steps. I am moving because I want more time and convenience. And I don't want to spend my next 2 months packing and carrying and loading things. So it really depends on your resources and your mindset. But most of our clients are probably in their mid 70s to mid 80s. We have moved a woman as old as 99.
Another question in chat. How do you calculate the fees your company would take for the service you provide?
Well, it depends on what services we're providing and what things you have. So as an example, if you're selling items, that fee, we take a commission, and that varies based on the value of the items we're selling. So if you're selling a Steinway piano, there's a lower commission than selling pots and pans. When we do packing and sorting, the fees vary based on how dense a house is. You know, we deal with hoarders extensively, and so that's priced differently than dealing with a normal person. So we really have to look at the situation to figure out just what the most cost-effective proposal would be for you. You know, we're not a service company. We're more of a solution company. So we're going to look at how do we get the outcome you're looking for.
Anyone else? Do you have a website?
Yes, it's www.caringtransitionschestercounty.com.
Okay, I've just typed it into the chat.
How about pianos?
What about them?
How do you get rid of them?
So it depends on what kind it is, right? So pianos and pool tables are like the things that haunt everyone. They all seem like a good idea at the time. So pianos, depending upon the make, the condition, they're saleable. A lot of pianos, unfortunately, are just almost boat anchors. So we try to get those donated. So if you have an old upright piano that hasn't been played for 5, 6, 8 years, hasn't been tuned, and it's not a big name, that's either going to be donated or you're going to need to dispose of it. And that's no easy task. If it's a baby grand and it's a Yamaha, or it's a Baldwin or Steinway, some others, those hold their value. If it's not a real recognizable name and it's 25 years old, pianos kind of have a useful life because their soundboards start to break down and they don't hold the tune properly. So the market for them is a little bit, is really soft, actually, if it's an older, unexercised piano.
Yeah, that's what I expect mine is, but I don't know how to have someone take it out or take it away.
So pianos, you want a specialized person to come. If you have a baby grand, there's a company called B&N Piano that will come and take it away, I think, you know, but it's hundreds of dollars to do it. It's a specialized process.
But how about for one that's just for disposal?
Well, they may take it out for disposal as well. I would call them. We haven't disposed of a lot of baby grands. Most that we have seen, we've been able to sell. They've been higher end pianos.
Yeah, mine's just an upright. Mine's one of those that hasn't been used for a while and it's just sitting there.
And where is it?
It's in my living room up a flight of stairs.
Yeah. So yeah, we could talk offline about that. I'd have to really see it. We've disposed of upright pianos a number of times. Steps are a challenge because they're really heavy and you really need to have some special equipment to take them out. Depending upon the steps, I would say you still may want to get a piano mover, because even people who are strong and mean well, it's just a really heavy thing. There's a big piece of brass in the back of them that weighs a ton. That's where all the weight is, and all the strings are attached to that.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I tried looking online, but I couldn't really find someone. So
Well, look at B&N Piano. Look that up and see if they would do a disposal.
Great. Thanks so much.
Okay.
B&M or B&N?
N as in Nancy.
Thank you.
Another question in chat, if you sell household items for clients, do you remove the items from the home in order to post them, or do they remain in the home until sold?
So when we sell items, 95% of the time, we'll sell them from the home. And we do that pretty much anonymously. So we would photograph the items in the home professionally, and then we post them on our website, which is followed nationally. We are a franchise. There are about 200 other franchisees. So there's a following across the country. The auction runs for about 7 to 10 days, and it's highly marketed. And then only, and it would say, you know, collectibles for sale in Phoenixville. And that's all they know. They know what area it's in and maybe what the theme of it is. When the auction ends and the person is the winning bidder, they're automatically sent an invoice. And on that invoice, it's the first time they know where the items are located. So you're anonymous. The world doesn't know that you've got these neat things for sale. So we will then have all their information. We'll have the registration information. They pay. They don't get it until they pay. So we have their billing information, et cetera. They go online, and we have an automated system that schedules their pickup time within a full, like usually a 4-hour period on a specific day. So during that specific day, there are slots, and we are there, and we facilitate them getting all of those items out of the house and collecting the money. And then hopefully there's a check there that goes to the owners of the items.
Another question in chat. We are looking for a 55+ community to move to. Do you have any comprehensive list of communities in our area?
I don't have a comprehensive list. It depends on what you're looking for, right? So one of the areas that's one facility that's real popular for folks who downsize is in Eagleview, a place called Meridian. And it's popular there because there are apartments. So folks sell their homes, they have their money, and they try to figure out, you know, is this a bridge to going to a senior community or a continuous care retirement community where I'm going to get my meals and other activities? So they're able to save money and be in a vibrant area and be in a safe area. So Meridian in Exton in Eagleview is a really neat place. There's another place called Coldstream Crossing, which is a 55+ on Route 113 at Coldstream, which has some really nice townhomes, carriage type homes. Some are really big, some are really nice. So those are two we work with a lot in this area. And I believe there's some really neat places going up in Collegeville for 55+ that could be options for people. But it depends on what your interests are. You know, do you want to buy a home? Do you want to rent? Do you want a home? Do you want an apartment? You know, there are a growing number of options in the area.
A question, if people want to try to sell items themselves, do you have some sites that you would recommend to do so?
Well, I'm not sure I would recommend them. You know, we use Marketplace sometimes to sell items. But I can tell you just from experience this morning, we're trying to sell something called a press cupboard. It's a piece from the 1850s. It's French design. It's an antique. It's beautiful. It's large. It's in 2 pieces. It was worth several thousands of dollars. We were nice guys. We moved a client, and that was one piece that was left over. We said, we'll try to sell it. It has been in my garage now for about 5 months. And we've put it on any number of sites. And we've had many, many people who said, we want to buy it, only to say, well, it's too big. I can't get there. Well, will you take a lot less? If you've got a number of items, trying to sell them on your own can be really tough. If you've got some folks, family members who can do eBay for you, that may work. But the local marketplaces we found may be the best places to sell your items. They're safer. And keep in mind that whole safety issue. You just don't want people coming to your house.
Is one of your services acting as a real estate to find a new downsized place?
We don't do real estate, but we work extensively with realtors, trusted realtors. I'm in several networks of folks who are just committed to the senior marketplace. We're pretty much a self-policing organization. I deal with folks that are productive, responsive, and compassionate when it comes to selling your property and finding new places. And I'd be happy to share, some contacts in that area.
Can I ask about antiques?
Sure.
I have a lot of antiques that were my parents, like wagon seats that were converted into benches, dry sinks, corner cupboards, hutches, an old Hoosier, a lot of things like that. Any recommendation on where to start?
Well, I mean, if you have enough stuff, we sell those things. The Hoosiers are kind of neat, and people are still looking for those. Corner cupboards, not so much so. We just had an auction last month where we had some really nice corner cupboards. Not as popular as you would think, because they're basically like almost a curio in a corner. The hutches are probably the least popular of the items, but if it has something unique about it and it could become a shabby chic, then it may be desirable, because so much of what was considered an antique now becomes something to be repurposed. Used to be you take an antique and you just let it keep aging. Well, now it's no longer in style. So they're taking them and converting them and painting them in grays and whites and distressed finishes.
How about trunks? I've got a number of them. Wooden trunks.
It depends on what kind of condition they're in. We've sold some steamer trunks from, the 1920s. A couple of them were good value. Others are just, old boxes to people. So it depends on what they are, the brand, and what kind of story there is with it.
Okay, thanks. Is there anyone you would recommend as appraisers to decide if there's a lot of value?
I don't really use appraisers very often for items. I mean, there are some auction houses, but I'm not so, they're gonna say, hey, I think I can get money for this, just like I would, or they say, yeah, I don't think there's much money. You may look at some local auctioneers and see what services they may offer with their items. You send them pictures and they'll say, I'm interested or I'm not interested. And that kind of tells you what the value is.
Okay, thank you.
I think you may have addressed this. Can you refer us to real estate agents?
Yes, I can. I don't hear you, Mark.
Really?
Now I do.
Oh, okay. Anyone else for a question for John? All right, John, great job answering all of these. Thank you. And thanks for the presentation today too.
So
what is the website again? The website again, I put it in the chat. It is www.caringtransitionschestercounty.com. So if you scroll up in the chat there, you'll see that listed.
Yep, and that my contact number is right up there in the corner. So you can reach out to me if you have follow-up questions. Just feel free to contact me. And I'm sorry, I can't give specific answers to some of the questions that were asked, just because I would need to see it. And I never want to mislead people and give them a false sense of hope, security, or value.
Is there a charge for your just coming out?
No, there's not.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, excellent. Thanks again, John, and thanks everyone for joining us this morning too.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye now.